let's define pillar content in this context because there's multiple definitions for it. But when we're talking about pillar content for this episode, we're saying, okay, if you're really good at writing on Twitter, that is your pillar piece of content. Now, if you're really good at podcasting, then let's say Joe Rogan, for example, that's his pillar piece of content. What we're talking about in terms of 10xing your output is remixing that content. Let's say that 3-hour episode can be cut up, can be, put onto a blog post, can be put onto LinkedIn and things like that. So we're going to talk about that kind of content sprouting strategy in this episode. That way you can get the most bang from your buck out of all the effort that you're putting in. And as an example, this podcast, at each session, Neil and I will record. It takes about an hour or so, but we want to make the most out of that, right? So we're going to talk about what we've done and also what we plan on doing in the future. So Neil, you want to go first?
Actually, quick question for you. How many pillar pieces of content do you guys create on a monthly basis?
Like original?
Uh-huh.
So, okay, let's count this podcast as well, right? So let's say this podcast, we pump out like 20 a month. And then my videos,
But 30 a month. We actually create 30.
Well, okay, technically 30. Okay, so let's say 30. And then there's 3 YouTube videos, long form YouTube videos that come out a week. So that's 12, right? And then there's like a shorts that comes out like every day or so. So it starts to add up. And then our blog post, there's like 8 new ones a month.
But that's just content, right? I'm assuming they're not all pillar pieces of content, like the shorts.
Sorry, let's eliminate the shorts. Yeah, so the ones I said before, those would be the originals, so to speak.
Yeah, and then
and that's not including like originals because I write originals on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So let's just add in like another 20 there.
You use AI to write the originals, or are you doing it manually?
Manually.
Cool. So we're similar. We produce a similar amount of content. I think main videos, I do 3 a week. Blog posts, call it 1 main new blog post a week. That's pillar. Podcasting episodes, I got 30. And then we slice and dice and just produce so many other pieces of content. Great example of this is did an interview with a guy named Ryan Pineda. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name. Sorry about that, Ryan. Pineda. And my team will take it up and create like maybe 6 or 7 other pieces of content just from that main interview. And when we do that for everything, it's just like for every 1 piece of content that we create, I know this title is like 10xing your output. We don't really get 10x. We probably get 3-4x realistically. But the way we make that grow exponentially is the 3x, let's say, we repost that on like 7 or 8 different social networks. So it really adds up.
Yeah. And so, by the way, like this, if you want to, take it from 3x to 4x, all you need to do is increase the output. That's how you get to the 10x. And so this is why part of the reason why Neil and I, so for example, when you listen to this episode, Neil and I will already have spoken in Dubai together. And so in Dubai, Neil's going to have his own session on the main stage. I'm going to have my own session on the main stage as well. But also we're going to have a breakout session for marketing school. We're just going to take all that content, repurpose the hell out of it. For episodes for this, right? But also we're going to chop it up for shorts as well because we're doing it for a marketing school channel, which we're trying to grow. And so we're trying to get the most bang for our buck because Neil, your session will probably be like 30, 45 minutes or so. I'll be another 35, 45 minutes. And then we'll have like probably 45 minutes for marketing school. That's a ton of content already. Yeah. And so we also want to max, like I'm already testing out one of our copywriters that we've worked with before. He used to work for Agora, right? And he's learning kind of the nuances around Twitter threads and LinkedIn. And so he can take a lot of the content that we're putting out here, the pillar pieces of content, output it there, and we can get more reach because we have LinkedIn. When we try hard on LinkedIn, it works pretty well. When we half-ass it, it's pretty easy for the algorithms to tell that we're half-assing it. So just make sure that if you're going to do this, full-ass it, don't half-ass it. So that is what it is. Anything else, Neil?
No. Another thing is when you repurpose your content and you create a lot of small sound bites from your main piece of content, the key is to really get that 10x output. You got to leverage more than one social network. So you could be like, I don't need TikTok. There's no value in TikTok for my audience. Well, if you're not leveraging TikTok, you're not going to get as much play. Something's better than nothing. Who knows? Maybe you eventually get customers from it. Same with Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and Reddit and YouTube and Facebook. Again, the list really does go on and on. So you got to use all these networks. And you may have the philosophy that, oh, I can't post the same piece of content on all these networks. People are going to get really irritated about me. No, the algorithms work in a way where majority of your followers don't see your content. So if you post it on all the networks, there's a higher likelihood that they see it, and you probably have different followers on a lot of these networks.
If you want a good example of this, so Vanessa Lau does a really good a good job of repurposing all her content. So if you follow her on YouTube, then she'll see that she has writers. She does a really good job with the Instagram repurposing. I just don't have the time for that. Neil has someone that works on his Instagram, but it's we're just not at the level that she's at with her stuff, where she's like layering on a bunch of things, and her stories have like she's recording herself working throughout the day. Like that's all great stuff, and I wish we could do it, but maybe we're just too old now. But so.
Vanessa also has a lot of energy. She's smart. She's ambitious. She's done really well from it. She also loves video creation. She loves being on camera. I don't mean that in a bad way. She's just naturally good at it. Yep. Eric and I, we don't mind being on camera. I don't think
we don't love it.
We don't love it as much as some other people. And again, we don't mean that in a bad way. Just some people like Gary Vee, Vanessa, the Ramoses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I said that last.
Hormozes, yeah, you said it right.
You know, all these people just love being on camera, not in an egotistical way. I just mean that they're just naturally good at it and they're charismatic. Eric and I, yes, we do fine on camera. You know, we rather just work on operations than creating content.
Yeah. I mean, if we're to create, honestly, my natural space is writing, and I think it kind of is for you, Neil. So yeah. Anyway, people are different, right? Like this is why we say pillar content. You do what's natural to you. We can add a bunch of tactics here, but I think we'll just end it here. Just take a look at what Vanessa does. There's a lot of tactical stuff that she teaches as well. So
Vanessa Lau.
Vanessa Lau. Yes. LAU for everyone to search for. So today we want to talk about, I mean, the content game is going to continue to shift. I believe that we are going to see more companies jump into this whole concept of becoming a media company, which just basically means, you know, taking advantage of as much organic social reach as you can, and then maybe layering on some paid there. So a good example of this would be when you look at HubSpot, they bought The Hustle. There's a reason they bought The Hustle, and they're creating this HubSpot podcast network. They're trying to have this media arm because marketing, paid marketing especially, is getting harder and harder. And so we want to talk about how you can level up your content, because that's going to fit into this whole media company strategy thing.
Yeah. So first off, when we're talking about improving your content, there's a few things you can end up doing. One, you can end up using AI tools. There's a lot of them out there that end up using OpenAI's APIs to end up helping you create ideas or generate ideas and create content. The content that they create isn't the greatest. It's not perfect, but it's a start. And then you can go in and then have your team modify it. It'll help you crank out more content. And assuming your team modifies it, you can still maintain the quality. Another thing that you can do in 2023 is we ran a survey on how marketers will spend their money in 2023. Over 8,000 ended up responding. A lot of marketers and companies are spending a lot more money on podcasting in two ways. One, to create podcasts, because most companies don't have podcasts. So you should consider doing it because it's a big blue ocean and it's not that competitive. And the second one is, you should consider doing impression swaps with other podcasts to get your podcast more possible. So for example, if you have 5,000 listens a month, you show an ad for someone else's podcast for those 5,000 listens to help them get more subscribers. It doesn't matter if they have 20,000, listens a month or 100,000, they'll give you 5,000 in exchange. So you're just doing an even swap. You can also join a podcast network, which helps, or you can also advertise on other podcasts and just pay them a little bit of money to promote your podcast to get way more listens. Another way that you can improve your content is just start creating video. Again, in 2023, when we did our survey, most companies aren't producing video content, believe it or not. From YouTube to Instagram to TikTok, there's just so much opportunity in videos. And when I mean videos, I'm not talking about commercial quality. I'm talking about just busting out your phone or getting a camera and recording people within the organization or yourself and putting it on social media and making it real.
Yep. So by the way, on the AI piece, totally agree with that. But everyone should take a look at, there's a tool called GPT-2 output detector demo. So just literally, okay, I'm going to repeat that. You're going to have to Google this. So GPT-2 output detector demo. And basically when you have, like, let's say you use Jasper, or let's say you use ChatGPT, if they give you a caption or they give you like a bunch of text, they help you rewrite something, put the text into here, because then you can see what percent is actually fake, which means like it can be detected as it's like duplicate content or whatever, or what percent is actually real. And so run it through this. You're gonna have to be creative with your captions, saying like, hey, you know, write me rewrite this post, or write me a long form, you know, piece of content on this marketing school episode, right? It might make it like 2,000 words or whatever, but you might say, hey, instead of that, write me a 2,000 word piece, but write it using interesting words and like in a different way, right? Like in a, like a, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good caption here, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But that's one thing. You have to make sure that you don't trip those filters. That's one piece of it. The second thing is on Neil's video point, basically this video, we're going to be chopping it up for shorts, right? So shorts, reels, TikToks, and you can be basically making sure that you're maximizing your organic reach there. I would also say, let's just use this podcast as an example. If I were to say, okay, let's make sure that we not only post every single longer form video to YouTube, and long form for us is 3 to 4, 5 minutes, shorts, reels, TikToks, but also if we can get it written as threads for Twitter as well to maximize organic reach there, and then also put it on LinkedIn natively. And that way, I think we're going to be able to tackle as much as we can. Hopefully, we could also put this up on like a, you know, like an email list somewhere as well.
Yeah, and lastly, from my end, an easy way to level up your content next year is just slice and dice and repurpose your content. Again, a lot of people don't do it. They're like, yeah, we repurpose. You're repurposing what you're doing on Instagram and putting it on TikTok. But are you actually taking the stuff you're doing from your podcast and using and creating shorts from it? Or are you taking the blog content and actually creating video content based off of it, and vice versa? That's what we really mean by repurposing. We don't mean just taking what you put on Instagram and then put it on TikTok.
Yep.
You can end up using SEMrush, Ahrefs to see what your competitors are creating out there and what's popular. Ubersuggest has a top pages feature where you can put in any competitor URL and it shows you what's popular based on SEO traffic, social shares, and backlink count. Answer the Public has one where it pulls from Google Suggest and breaks down what people are typing. So in essence, what's starting to trend or what's trending, and you can create content around all those keywords. But there's a lot of tools that can end up helping you out with that. Another thing that you can do if you want content ideas and you're struggling, there's a lot of AI tools where it's like, you know, copy.ai, Jasper, where you can actually put in keywords. And here's a crazy thing. It'll give you a ton of title ideas. It'll also help you write the whole article. And then you're going to have to go and modify it to make it better. But the AI tools can keep giving you more and more ideas. Eric and I talked about this in a few past episodes, but just keep in mind, a lot of the AI tools are also creating duplicate content. So you just got to go in and heavily modify them.
Yep. What I would say is, in addition to the tools that Neil's mentioning, I like looking at exploding topics. Exploding topics is from our mutual friend, Brian Dean, to come up with content ideas. I also like looking at Google Trends. I also like looking at what people are searching on my own website. So if you have some volume on your own website, just use the internal search feature and you can see what people are looking for, because you can see all the queries. And then the other thing is, when we come up with content ideas for this podcast, oftentimes we'll look at our analytics to see what the top performers are. So take a look at your analytics, whether it's your Google Analytics, whether it's your webmaster tools, or in the case of this podcast, we just look at what episodes tend to perform well. And, you know, I mean, it no surprise, like a lot of our SEO content marketing stuff tends to perform well, because I guess that's kind of our background. And so you can look at the lagging indicators. Exploding topics and Google Trends are kind of the forward indicators, but also look at the news, right? So every morning I might check what's hot on Twitter. So I pay for Twitter Blue. It's like $11 a month or something for Apple. And so I can see what's hot, but then I can also see what's hot on Wall Street Journal. I can look at I have this thing called the Economist Espresso. So it gives me like little bite-sized pieces on what's happening in the world. And so I can see what's hot very quickly. And then I can choose to react to that content, or I can just choose to share stories about what's actually working for us, or, you know, look at look at my analytics. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think what's important is not necessarily using all the tools that we're talking about here, but figuring out what stack works for you, because maybe that's 2 or 3 different things. Because just because we're saying like, oh, like we probably mentioned like 8 or 9 different things here, I don't want you to feel stressed to have to use every single one of them. Test what works for you. If you're early in your career, test all these tools, and then you're going to figure out what cadence works best.
Yeah, look, follow all that. You'll have unlimited content ideas. The big thing is not coming up with ideas that marketers mess up on. It's actually executing, creating the content, and getting it published and promoting it. So just make sure you follow through and publish a lot of the content that you're creating, and update it, because if it gets too old, you'll notice that your ranking starts slipping as well.
Yep. So vidIQ is actually a YouTube tool. I connect it with my YouTube channel. It does great competitive research and all that. But there's actually a daily ideas feature in there. And there's going to be like nice headlines for you. And they have predictions for how well a headline's going to perform. So generally, I like that type of stuff because it gives me ideas. And I usually what happens is I'll end up modifying those content topic ideas. But at least it gets me 70 or 80% there where I don't need to do as much of the thinking.
Yeah, I'm going to just give you one strategy, and I just really love this one strategy, and not too many people actually do it, and I don't know why. So let me break it down for you, all right? So Quora is one of the most popular websites on the internet. You guys already know that. And what we found is most people don't answer questions like they do on Quora. So Quora, top 100 website according to SimilarWeb, and you have things on there like, hey, how hard is it to be Olympian, or how hard is it to, or how long can the average person hold their breath? Like they just answer any questions that people have. So take the space that you're in. You can use tools like Answer the Public, which gives you a lot of question-based keyword research, and it's free. SEMrush can do the same. Ubersuggest, Ahrefs, most of these marketing tools can all do this. Type in keywords within your industry, literally go and answer all the questions and create content around it. It sounds kind of crazy. It's a lot of work, and you're not going to get a ton of traffic for any one article, but it can add up to hundreds and thousands, if not millions and millions of visitors a month. And that's a strategy I love using to find amazing topic ideas, because it's showing you what people are typing in right now on Google Suggest and what's quote unquote, trendy within your industry. And that keyword may not be that popular, but it is becoming popular.
So I like also looking at so you can take Neil's tactic and you can actually apply a question to a Google search, and then you can look at the very bottom to see people also ask this question. So you get more questions ideas too. And then also you can take that question or maybe a portion of that question or topic idea and type it into the Google search bar, and they'll actually help you autocomplete as well. So you get a bunch of ideas that way. What else do I like using? I also like using my analytics. So whatever people are searching on my website, if I find that search is happening quite a bit, so if you have internal search turned on, you can do that. And then you can also take a look at your search console as well. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. It's not saying use every single tactic here. Just these all work. I think it's a matter of finding the one that you're most comfortable with and the ones that provides the most ROI. Even though we're saying all these things right now, it's not like we do every single one of them. All that to say is like there's a lot to do.
But just try, either strategies out, what Eric or I mentioned, and it'll help you not only find amazing content ideas, but you'll start generating more traffic.
Neil, what is your content plan for 2023?
It's actually to produce less content, believe it or not. So in 2022, I've created a lot of content. We create at least one piece of short content that gets published a day for, TikTok, Instagram, etc. 3 longer format videos that are usually 5 to 10 minutes a week that get published. Hour-long webinar at least once a month. A podcast that's daily. 3-4 blog posts a week. At least one of them I'm writing that's very detailed. Usually the ones I release on Tuesday are the ones I write. My team, typically the other ones that they're writing is like, what is SEO, or the difference between SEO and SEM, like that kind of stuff. You don't really need as much of a quote unquote expert to write. And, there's much more content creation than this, that. There's a daily podcast that we have, if I already didn't mention that. There's images that we create, and the list goes on and on. When we look at the ROI from what we're generating from a lot of the content that we're creating, it's generating traffic, but it's not necessarily generating a lot of revenue. On the flip side, when we speak in person at events that charge $4,000 or $5,000 a ticket, we build a much better potential customer base list. And from there, we're able to close many more leads. So I'm going to still create Instagram content, TikTok content, YouTube content in 2023, just not as much. So I may decrease it by 50% is our rough estimate right now. But what I'll replace that savings with is, how do I create more trend and analysis pieces, like the state of digital marketing for 2023? I'm just making this up. And how do we speak at conferences more with our target audiences and not charge for those events, but speak for free, but create presentations that are just super specific, like speaking at a pharma event and then talking about the state of pharma digital marketing and here's what to do to succeed and here are all the trends. So then that way, yes, we're creating content. It's not necessarily for the masses. It's very niche and industry specific. But our theory is it'll close way more revenue than just creating more blanket mainstream content for TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. And we've already been testing this out in 2022, speaking of more conferences, but more niche ones. And we've seen really great results from this.
What do you think your monthly reach is on your current content if you had to combine everything?
10 plus million.
Okay, 10 million. Okay, got it. Anything else you want to add?
A lot of people optimize for vanity metrics, likes, followers, but if it doesn't generate a ton of revenue, who really cares? If it makes you happy, by all means, go for it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't create content for the masses because I believe the branding is good, but a large chunk of your content creation process should be focused on generating direct revenue. Even if the sales cycle is long, that's okay. But both for B2B and B2C, a large chunk of your content production time should be spent on stuff that generates positive ROI. So, all right, Eric, what are you planning on doing in 2023 when it comes to your content creation?
Yeah. So one is the whole concept of content remixers. And before I talk about that, so Neil mentioned his monthly reach is 10 million. I think it's probably a little more than that because our reach right now monthly is about 3.1 million or so, 3.3 million. And I'll kind of break that down a little bit, maybe towards the end of this. But going back to the content remixing piece. So what that really means is let's take this podcast as a pillar piece of content. So this podcast can basically be repurposed onto LinkedIn as a written post. It can be a carousel because carousels do really well on LinkedIn. And maybe we should do an episode on LinkedIn secrets, remix for Twitter as well, right? And there's actually there's like content remixing agencies that are popping up now. If you do a really good job there, Neil and I, we might be interested in hearing from you, but we're trying to double down, triple down on that. So it's just, trying to maximize organic reach where it's strong, like a LinkedIn. And hopefully, Elon opens up the floodgates a little more for Twitter because the organic reach has gone down a little bit. And so right now we're currently doing a LinkedIn a day, a tweet a day, an Instagram a day, a TikTok a day, podcast a day. YouTube for leveling up is about 3 times a week. For the Marketing School podcast, if you haven't subbed to us on YouTube, that one's growing really quickly. We're gonna be amping up the frequency to 7 times a week. So that's a daily. Right now, we're at about 3 times a week right now. So we're trying to ramp up production across the board. That being said, we aren't trying to go like 4 Instagrams a day, 4 TikToks a day or whatever. It's just like, kind of some of these, it's like, we're probably not going to get an enterprise client from TikTok in very rare cases, right? Cornerstone pieces of content. That's something that Neil talked about in the last episode where talk about trends, statistics and things like that, right? That for us is probably like a once a quarter thing. Both Neil and I have spoken at conferences in 2022, and we'll probably continue to do that. We're actually both speaking at a conference in Dubai and maybe some other ones in 2022. But in general, I've adjusted my approach at least to focus more so not on making money from the talks, but more so using those as an opportunity to not just hang out with Neil, but get more content. And so right now, I'm just trying to figure out like, how else do we get more content? How do we maximize this trip, right? Agree with Neil, speaking more in general, and that is the high level. But keep in mind too, if you're B2B, just because Logan Paul or Mr. Beast are going like ham on a lot of things, more so Logan Paul, doesn't necessarily mean you have to. If you think you're capturing a good part of the audience and you're reaching the right people, then that's all you can ask for. Oh, final thing I'll add too is I'm obviously a big proponent of community. So the Leveling Up Founders Mastermind, that's always going to be a big piece of, hanging out with people that I enjoy hanging out with, always bringing in new people and interesting people. It's also another touch point, 2 touch points for Neil and I to hang out, in a year. So that is it for today. If you want to check out that event, by the way, levelingup.com/founders, that's for 7 to 9 figure founders. We meet twice a year.